Thanks everybody for joining us today. I am Colin Vermander with XRMVirtual Community. I also have Eric with us today, who's going to be presenting on AI Builder, using components or use components in apps and integrate pre-built models in Power Automate. If you're not familiar with what Power Automate is, you might also know it as Microsoft Flow. As always, for XRMVirtual, we are going to be recording our call today. We always post all of our events and the recordings on our past events page. So if you are not able to catch everything or you want to rewatch Eric's demos, catch some of the links that are within here, then you can do so by downloading the recording. We also really invite you to share this if you find it interesting with your colleagues or other community members out there. You can watch and follow XRMVirtual and all the events either on our Twitter at XRMVirtual or on the XRMVirtual.com website. I don't really have a conference list because we're kind of entering the holiday season. There are a lot of local user group events that are still taking place though. So if you're interested, the Power platform communities of Power Apps, Microsoft Flow / Power Automate, and Power BI are all probably giving user groups locally. So I'd invite you to check out the Dynamics communities sites, powerplatformug.com, and you can see what's up locally in your own area. XRMVirtual is always looking for speakers. This is actually how we got Eric. Eric reached out to us and we reached back out to Eric and said, hey, Eric, please, we'd love to have this. We refined the topic a couple of times and I think we're actually going to get some future topics from Eric because he's got quite a lot of good content that would be valuable to everybody here. But if you or you know somebody or you just want a topic and you don't necessarily want to present it yourself, then please tell us. There's a form on xrmvirtual.com where you can submit the information you're interested in hearing about or interested in talking yourself about, and then we'll contact you and start scheduling it. So we're always looking for speakers. So I will now hand it over to Eric, and Eric can tell us all about AI Builder. Yes, take it away, Eric.
Hi. Okay, so hi guys, hi everyone. So you can see my screen, right? Just to confirm.
Yep, looks all good to me.
Awesome. AI Builder. Where I'm coming from, Eric, just so for the ones who don't know me, I'm pretty passionate about the Power Platform. Been involved into it for over 1.5 years now, and I really actively share with the other people around. If you want to track me down, just look for Z Power Diver on the different social media, and I'll provide my links at the end. I have a background of a developer, and I'm currently more of a solution architect in the last 4 years or so. I've been working at a consulting firm, namely XRMVision, since 2015, where I'm a Power Apps practice leader. As for AI Builder, I've been playing around and testing it thoroughly since I think last May or so, because we were involved in a preview before it got released at Embass. And ever since, I've really seen the value out of the different functionalities it bring, and really it's at a level where for the platform, it's really for the business users. But at the same time, on the technical side, there are areas where we need to cover more as developers or integrators or pro dev. And that's what I want to make sure that everybody is at the same level there. So I want to make sure that we cover 3 objectives today in our session. The first, just so we're all on the same playing field, like the same level, I want to make sure that you're aware of what the different AI Builder models are. So what they are about, and then from there we'll move on into how do those components play within our apps, within our flows, within CDS, how can we use the AI builder models. And lastly, based on the experience, based on what I've learned so far in there, there's lots of cool stuff, lots of value within AI Builder, but there's still things that needs to be ironed out, and I want to put you like some information there. So AI Builder, slick, but yet to be perfect. So AI Builder, what it's about. Really, for Microsoft, the position where they put the AI Builder is really at the platform level. So we have the different layers, even our new PVA friend here, and the Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, and they all use the CDS. They can use the different data connectors, and have access to AI Builder as one of the platform level items. So, and really it's in the low code position, but then again, like I said, it still needs a bit of technical. Two different types of models that are available within the AI Builder. First one are the ones that we were mostly presented very early were the custom models. Custom models are the ones where you need historical data, so you need to train your models. Those are models that you will that will be specific to your organization, to your business, and either it drives within CDS or it can update your CDS database. So, for example, in some cases, it will create new entities or new fields within your CDS database, so you can act upon it. And we'll look at all the details later on for these. Then from there's also a set of pre-built models. So those are components or actions that you can use in the flow within Power Automate, and they're ready to be used right away. That means the data is already, or the knowledge, the intelligence, the machine learning is already there. So you just use it as is. Some of you may be familiar with some of those within the Azure Cognitive Services, the Vision, the computer text areas. Well, this is just like an easy access to those functionalities that we get there. So the different items within there. In the custom models, we have the prediction set, which is right now in general availability, and that's to help determine an outcome. So you've looked at your historical data for different cases that you had in your call center, for example, and you have situations where you should have had a manager to go and look and make an action with your agent. Well, if you have enough historical data, you can build a model and predict this type of outcome for the new cases that are coming in. So should I have a manager to go and handle this specific case instead of doing some trial and error and guessing? So you optimize the work. That in all those models, what you're trying to do is optimize the work for everyone. Form processing. You have a form, you have an invoice, process like a purchase order, bill of landing, all that stuff that you get through PDF or through JPEG, different type of images. It's gonna process that and extract the data out of it. We'll show you the example there, but you can get the invoice number, the total, the items, who it's from, who it's to, but it's in a very standardized format at this point in time. Now for object detection, what we get there is the ability to recognize what's in a picture, the objects that are in there. One of the big examples Microsoft has demonstrated was the use of the object detection for a distribution like a cola distribution company, who's the guys who are driving the trucks and going in the different stores are taking pictures. It recognized that it has such and such cola in there and how many items are in there. So it's faster than just keying in the data within an Excel or an app. They just recognize the info and push it over. Another area where we've considered this the use for this whenever it becomes GA with a customer is for helping out in the evaluation industry, where people go and do and inspect the different houses to see if there's any defects in the foundation, like the basement level. And they're facing issues with the capacity, like the type of people they have access to, like the staff. And by doing a model where it recognizes if a faulty basement is there, it allows to have lower level people, like so more junior people out of school who would go out, take pictures, and it would tell right away if there's a potential defect and have more of a senior person come and do the actual work. Text classification, the last custom model that you have to train, that's if you have large amount of data, like so you have large documents or big series of text and you want to get tags out of it to know what it's about, and then you can act upon it. Then we move on to the pre-built models. Currently, there are 5 pre-built models. The business card reader. So if anybody from Europe or Asia is on the call, they're probably going to laugh about us in North America still using business cards, but that's the case. The idea here is to be able to take a picture of business card and extract the data, like the name, the company name, the phone number, and so on, and be able to push that over into your database. And that we have it in a Canvas app as well as in model driven. And the business card reader, just like the prediction, is in general availability. The 4 new pre-built models that were released just about around Ignite, the sentiment, and those are very close to some of you may have seen with the Azure Cognitive Services APIs, the sentiment analysis. So I take a text, it will look at the different sentences and see if what's the sentiment for each sentence, and then have an overall value for the overall text. So see if it's positive, negative, and based on that, there again you can take actions. So let's say you get a centralized email box, so info@zpoweredalver.com, and then based on that, you based on a sentiment, if it's positive, you can send it to marketing department. And then they can promote it. If it's negative, you can send it to the customer service department so they can go and contact the person and act upon it too. Key phrase extraction. So coming kind of back to the text classification here, the idea is you have large set of text and you get key points out of it. So let's say I get large emails coming in. I process this through, and I just get the key points. I can put that in the initial summary. So before I read, I can see what it's about. Sorry about that. Forgot to put the not available. Language detection. Like here in Quebec, we have to deal with French and English. So again, the example of an email coming in, I want to be able to respond in the right language. I think in some areas in the US, it's the same thing with Spanish and English and so on. So the idea is be able to react accordingly. And finally, text recognition. So we have like handwritten document, it recognizes and converts it to text. So what do we have and where is it usable? 3 types of integration that we have for the different AI models. One within our little friend Power Automate. In all situations, you have to create, at this point in time, you have to create the flow within a solution. There is no triggers from those models, and what you use the predict action, and that's using the CDS current environment connector. And then you have to process the request payload, which is specific to the model, and the parse JSON, which is also specific to the model, and all the information is within the AI Builder documentation. I'll demo you later on with how to process that. Another way of integrating the AI Builder models is within your Power Apps. Two types of apps at this point in time. So we have Canvas app components, 3 of them. Business Card Reader, which is in GA, the Form Processor, and Object Detector. The idea here is pretty much the components where we take a picture and it processes them, besides the new pre-built models. And lastly, within a model-driven app, so like a Dynamics type of app, you can have a business card reader within your form. So you scan a card and it will update the different fields directly in that form. There too, I will walk you through how to do it. Finally, in CDS, the interactions you get, or the areas where you can act upon it, is you can either have a new entity. For example, in the text classification, there's a new entity where the results are. So what it means here is, for example, I process a text and it generates tags for that text. And I really say tags because there can be more than one tag for one text. So it can say staff, it can say employee, or complaint, or things like that. And those different tags will generate a specific row within that results table for that row. That's why it generates a new entity. Now for the prediction model, in that case, since it's a one-to-one, within that entity where you do the prediction, it will add 3 different columns. For the prediction, the actual probability that this prediction, like how confident it is, and an explanation towards it. I've built this little table view, and you'll have the links at the end of the presentation of what's where, and I'm trying to update it on a regular basis. So last update was on November 4th, so about a week or so ago, where the initial regions of US and EU were already GA, and at that point in time there was Australia, New Zealand, and UK that were being GA'd. So not everywhere. So right now, if you want to use AI Builder, you need to spin up a new CDF environment within those regions. The 3 different type of interactions I talked about, so Power Automate, Power Apps, Canvas, Model Driven, and CDS, and then the different types of models. So you can see in which areas you can use which one. As you see, the big winner here is mainly Power Automate at this point in time, which gets the most value or the most interactions. But I'm sure that down the road we'll get these filled in, I hope. Demo time. Any interactions, Colin, or any questions that pop up in the meantime, or we're good to go for demo?
Yeah, no, I think go for it. I haven't seen anything pop up at this point.
Okay. So quickly, so just so you know where to navigate for the AI Builder within your Power Apps environment, so the make.powerapps.com, you should have the AI Builder here. And then again, I just repeat the fact that it needs to be an environment which is in the supported regions. Otherwise, you'll get some errors when you go there. Or yeah. So again, for the end user, you'll be able to process through a step-through action. So very guided for each of those 4 models that you need to train. I'll do an example for one, so just so you get the feel of what the business user gets in terms of interface. So here in the form processing, all the different steps of what the user, so you get guided of what the different steps are. They can get examples of what it is, what the best practices are about, and so on. So lots of info, guided way. So I create, of course, so I create my new model here. So I get the info here. I say it needs to add documents. I get the specifications of what size it is and number of pages that it supports. So I'll just go here, form processing. Pretty basic. I'll get all the different documents, and I just repeat the fact that right now the form processing model is built in a way that the different invoices or different documents need to be pretty much the same way. So if I take the example of, let's say I wanted to create a model that where I would scan my receipts, restaurant receipts, for example, when I'm on the road, well, I would have to train a different model per restaurant that I go to, or always go to the same restaurant. So let's say I always go to Tim Horton. Well, then, okay, I can train a model for my Tim Horton receipts, and it will recognize the detail and be able to send that to my expense system. But if I go to different areas like Starbucks, Tim Horton, and McDonald's or whatever to get my coffee, depending on where I'm at, this wouldn't work because I would need to train 3 different models. So once I put in my historical, so coming back to my slide, you need to provide historical data. So here I would be providing historical data or sample forms, sample invoices, sample or purchase orders or whatever the document is. I have to get a good set of documents that I want to process. The system will come back with recommended fields that it will detect. And for the different models, it's the same concept. I won't go through each one, we don't have time, but for the object detection, it's the same thing. I have to provide it with pictures, and it will do the analysis, and then we walk through this step of identifying the tags. Same thing with the text and so on. So here it processed the document, and it just highlights the different fields. I can select only a few ones, rename them, or just add all the fields that it recognizes from here, and say I'm done. And from there, it's going to train, and it goes back to the list. So in my AI builder here, I have my build, which is where I create my models, and then the actual models I've built are in here, and I can go through them. So form processing, let's say we take this one. The information we get is what were the fields that were generated, and if I want to launch like a new flow or Power Apps directly from there, and I can just do a quick test from here, and it will do it live with a new invoice. So I can confirm that my training went well. So normally, if you have historical data, you might use maybe like 80–90% of that data to train, and then maybe use a subset of 10% or whatever to test it and see if the training is good or not. So that was form processing. We have text classification. The example here, if we do a quick test, let's say I do here. So this is the phrase. So this is the text that I would receive. It would go through the actual model and then return me a tag or a set of tags that it detected within there with a probability level. So just think again, this is just the base to use, where then in flows, I'll be able to interact or take actions upon there. That's where the actual work happens after. So our business users do this, and then we do the actual flows. That was text classification. Then we have object detection with 2 C's. And this one I use the green tea. So it takes the image, it will identify the different items within that image and give me even a confidence level for each of these. And just so you get an idea here of some of the issues that you might get depending on the training here, is you get 2 boxes for this one. And what actually happens, because I cannot show this one really, like I cannot move it, but what happens is it has some issues right now with the training I provided between the green tea rose and green tea cinnamon. And pretty much what happened is in my training, I screwed up. There was a few cases where I picked up cinnamon instead of rose and so on because they look so much alike. So when I have here, I actually have 2 items detected. And another thing I want you to keep in mind is here, when I use the quick test, I get the percentage, I get the confidence level. Later on, you'll see that when we use the component within a Canvas app, we don't get that info. So that's in the part that I feel that should be much better later on, hopefully. So we did the form processing, text classification, object detection, and lastly the prediction. In this case, what I see is what data within my entity were used to do the actual prediction. And if I go in my entities, and that would be the shopper intention. Sorry, online shopper intention. So that's my entity. And what it actually created here, I have a series of fields that were added. Sorry, that were added for storing the explanation, the intention, prediction, and the probability. So anytime I create a new model, like here, my online shopper intention demo on that entity, the system added the different fields. So if we go back here, so I could actually have triggers on those fields or take action on those fields in my different flow or just display it within my model-driven app. So that's for the prediction. And the other situation where there's new entity, it's the, so for the custom, not these ones, sorry. Results, sorry. Let's just go back here. Test classification. If I go in my detail here, so my input, I get it's the LKR feedback. So normally I go to my entity here. Of course, it didn't go in the right. It's published. And somehow I don't see my entity, but let's not stop there. So that's where we get the different data within our Power Apps environment that we get here. So from there, in our Canvas apps, so I'll go here in a Canvas apps that I've built just so you can see the different components that we have to be able to add those components in your insert. You have a item at the end here where you have the 3 different types of components. So business card readers, form processor, and object detector. Just so you get to see how they work. So I go here, and the form processor, you get this little component, which is actually a PCF in the back. And I go in my form processing. I use my test form. It's going to analyze it. So the user has this application, scans the document, and will get the data out of it. So all the stuff on the right is from that form. And I'll show you in a few seconds how they're obtained. Same thing with object detection. So I've detected this image, and as you see, I have the two green tea rows, because this one here and that one, and then in the back I have the actual green tea cinnamon, 1-1. So I have 4 items when actually there's 3. So there's still some enhancement to be done here. And lastly, the scan business card. As you can see, it doesn't have to be like all nice and pretty. It can be within a big image. It will detect the actual card and extract the data from it. Now, to actually access this data, let's go through each one. So within our business card, what we have here is directly within that control, we have the different fields that are available just there. So you just browse through here, and you have the different fields. So you could display it for your user to validate that what you have there is good or not, and then have them edit it if they want, and then submit and send to your CDS, database, CRM, or any other system. So just as simple as that. You drag, you get the control, you get data directly here, and you use it. Object detection. This one is a bit trickier because there's more data. So what I had to do here is within that control on the onChange event, I send the actual vision object. So you recognize here the Azure function, the Azure Vision API here. So you get a set of objects, so which is a table, result of a table. I send that into my collection, and then I can work with that actual collection. So if you want to go and see what they're about, you don't get much more information than this. So the count, the display name, and the ID. So coming back to the fact that I don't have the area where it's covered, I don't have the percentage of confidence that it's in. For me right now, it's still a bit limited. Nice, but still good work to do. And lastly, for the form processing, it's very similar to the business card reader, where I just access this control and I go within the form content, the fields, and then I'm going to get the list of the different fields that were detected when I created that model. Still good so far? No questions, Colin?
No, nothing yet in the chat. If anybody does have questions, you guys can feel free to come off mute. Seems like Eric will be happy to take them as we go. If not, then feel free to post them in the chat.
Awesome. So let's move on to Flow Power Automate. So what I'll do here is I'll show you an example of a flow that I created, which in this case is, like I said, keep in mind that this flow is created within a solution. So in this case, I'm just looking at different tweets with different tag words. And after that, I'm processing that through the sentiment analysis model. So how I've done that, pretty easy. I add an action. In the action, I have to go for, don't go for the first common data service. You have to go for the current environment one, which is this one here. And in there, I get the predict action. That's the one I have to use. That's what I have here. Then you choose the model. Which model do you want to use? And in there, you'll get the list of the different models that you've created. So I have my demo models that I can use, or you have the pre-built ones. How to recognize the pre-built ones? Right now, the only way is to look for the quote-unquote hard-coded name. So business card model, key phrase extraction model, and we have the text recognition model and sentiment analysis model. If I use any of these, then what I'll do is I need to provide it with a payload. Now, how to know what to put in this payload? The Microsoft documentation is pretty good for that. I think I have here. Yes. So within the docs, you go use AI Builder in Power Automate. You go in the different models, or either the pre-built or one of the ones that you want to use. So I think in this case I was using the sentiment analysis. So I go here, and in here you get all the steps, including the actual payload that you need to paste it. Because depending on the case, you might have multiple information to provide. So you just need to copy this over. So usually you have it in text like this. Copy it over in your flow and change these with actual data. It's just that right now I don't have the variables, but if you go back to this one here, so for sentiment analysis, I'm providing it the tweet text, which is coming from there, and actually the tweet language. So I add those. So I'm using those two as the parameters or the payload that I'm sending to this action. Now I get this action, great. I need to act on it. Second step, I need to actually parse the JSON out of it to be able to use that data. Once again, good info here in the docs. You have the copy the following JSON in the schema box. Way, pretty easy, right? Just copy and paste it in here, and you'll be able to just go through that after and use that result, the parse, and I'll show you the example. Use the parse result within your next step. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm monitoring some tweets. I'm getting the sentiment analysis on it, and I'm posting that into my tweet histories table with the different data. And in the air, big precaution for you when you use this. If you use dynamic content, like the sentiment, for example, you get two of these here on the side for dynamic content. No way to know which one is which, but what I've learned pretty much is the first one that you use here is for the document score. So you get an overall score for the document. So if you look in this case, just above the info help, you see that it's the result for document scores. Now, if I pick the second one, boom, magic. What happens here is I get an applied to each. Why? Because that, I think it was this one, right? Negative. This one on the current items, so apply to each. Here, yeah. So this one is the sentence scores. So for each sentence, so here, since I picked up the second one, it's going to loop through the different sentences of this text and give me the score for each of those. So just be aware when you pick this one to know if you want to deal with the overall document or the specific sentences. Well, let's just go back here, ignore this, and just show you an example of what I have in the history here. So you get a feel of the actual JSON and so on. So process sentiment here. So out of this, I get my response. I parse it in my JSON, and that's where I see that I have my score. So for each item, So for my score, my document, I get what's the positive level, what's the neutral level, what's the negative level. And for each sentences that it detects, what's the overall sentiment for that sentence, which also I add for the overall document, by the way, sorry. And then for each sentence, I get the score and what's the position or what's the actual sentence that it represents. So I get the offset and the length. So I can actually extract those and be able to act upon them. That's how you get it. And as a example, this is a gallery of that CDS table where I get the tweets and I get the actual sentiments, either positive, neutral, or negative. So I can look at the tweets and see, oops, I click on the actual detail here. So I get some tweets, it's popping it, and I get different ratings. I could even just select, let's say, the negative ones to see how it's reacting and why it's picking up. You see Honor V30 leaked, so probably because of the leaked word, whatever, that it picked up as being negative. So of course, this is analysis that you can have a human to kind of do the final part of it, but it drives some process much easier. So we've done the actual models overview. We've done the Canvas app components, the Power Automate flow. Lastly, the model driven. So let's make sure I'm in the right place here. So here, what I'll do is on my contact, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. It's in this one I have to go. Sorry. On my contact entity, within my form, within my main form, I'll go and edit. So what I want to do here is include the business card reader component, which is the only one right now available within my model driven. So the idea will be I have a form. I want to use the scanner, business card reader, and update my data. So what I need to do, still switch to classic. Yeah, it's one of those cases where we have to flip back to the good old classic form viewer. So I'll just add any kind of single line field here. Pretty much, it's just that it needs a field to bind to it. I go and edit the properties, and then within the controls, I add the control and what did I do wrong here? Well, I think because I picked a lookup value, sorry. Yeah, because it wasn't it's an address type, it's a lookup value. So single line in text. So I have my AI builder business card control. I pick it up here, use the AI builder control. I add it, and then say where I'll be using it. And finally, I just link the different fields in my form with the results I get from that business card reader. So for full name, what I get here, full name, and first name, job title. I'll just do a few so you get the idea. You could do mobile phone or business phone. It's this phone. Okay, so and then you would do it for them all, but just for demo purposes, I save my form, I publish it. Yeah, it's a two-step. That's how it is. Don't blame the demoer. So if I go in my apps, it's my model driven here, business card reader demo, which is pretty much just giving me the contacts list here. I go here for Elena Wilcox, and I go down in my form, and boom, I have a business card reader here. If I use it, select the same business card as before, and you'll see Elena Wilcox will update to the account director, the process. Did I do first name and last name? Oh, of course, it's already Elena Wilcox. Sorry. Let's go and pick another one. That's the one I had taken before. Sorry. So, business card reader. Select it. And Nancy Anderson should become Elena Wilcox. So Helena, I didn't choose the last name, but you get the idea. And the job title changed. And if I put the last name and so on, it would have updated all of it. So that's for model-driven integration of the business card reader. That's about it for the actual demos. Any questions before I move on? We're all good? So, sorry. AI Builder, slick, but yet to be perfect. What are my observations of the different experiments and implementations I've done? First thing, components in Power Apps. We don't get the full information. So going back to the example of the object detection, I don't have the percentage of the picture is detected. So I cannot provide that to the user who's taking that picture. Like, yeah, there is a defect on that wall, but I'm confident to 90% that actually there's a defect. But if it was only 20%, maybe I would investigate further or take a new picture. Right now, I don't have that information at all. So that's a big element that for me needs to be provided back, because the information is available. Because if we use it in a flow or we use it in the quick test, as I've shown you, we do have the information. So that's one part. Pre-built models. Right now, they're only in Power Automate, as you've seen. Well, they could be useful in apps too. Right now, if I want to use detect language or sentiment analysis on something live within my app, I have to go fall back to the Azure connector, which is, you know, why do you provide this in AI Builder if I cannot use it everywhere? Come on, guys. Okay. Regions. If you're like me or Colin out from the, or even Nick out from the up north cold country of Canada, well, we don't have really AI Builder in our environments. Only US, EU, Australia, New Zealand, so this needs to be rolled out. A lot of stuff is still in preview. Only the business card reader and the prediction are in GA at this point. So it's hard to go out and try to sell a project or implement a project if stuff is still in preview. Yeah, hello? Okay. No integration API. What I'm talking here is, for example, right now I need to manually train my models. So for the 4 models that we have, the form processing, the object detection, text classification, and of course, because I want to say that I don't have the other one, but form processing, we need to manually train the models. Some of them are fairly easy because you just provide data and it generates it. But one of the worst one is the object detection, for example. I need to go through all the images, tag the image, and identify what's in the image. Let's say I have hundreds and hundreds of pictures because I have different types of flowers that I need to recognize, or I need to recognize different type of failures in a process, in a construction site or something. I have to train every single picture. So I have somebody who's going to be there doing data entry for every single one. When maybe I have all that data already. Like I have a database with a list of pictures and a list of what they represent. Why am I not able to feed that through an API? Why am I not able to update the model? Let's say I feed it new pictures as I go along. Push that over through an API. inhabit, rebuild, retrain, things like that. So that needs to be, we need more integration, more automation facilities in there. Finally, in the flows, I feel like it's still a bit too technical for the business users if they want to implement this. Having to parse the JSON, having to build that request payload. It's not so citizen dev at this point. And lastly, you cannot run a flow that uses the predict from a Canvas app. What I mean here is, let's say I have my application here that I want to run one of those flows. So those flows are using the predict action. And bottom line, what I wanted to do here was to kind of trick or do the object detection and get the value from the prediction model. So get that percentage out of them, because the flow I added. So here within my Canvas app, I want to call one of these flows. Nice, I see them. Great. I want to use it. Great, heading. Boom, failed during HTTP send request. It fails. No way to call those flows within a Canvas app. Now, this is just because I wanted to trick it around. But even in a standard case, I'm coming back to the fact of right now, we don't have the pre-built models in Canvas app. So maybe one way out would be to call a flow and do that call to that pre-built models. Well, I can't. So it needs to be raised up. So wrap up. So I hope I've allowed you to walk out of this with these three objectives that have been covered. So understand AI Builder, what it's about, AI Builder, what's available and where, and kind of understand what the current limitations are and recommended improvements. And for references, you just go some of my stuff here that I've compiled. I have a wrap-up page, AI Builder, what, where, and a great list. I really recommend you go and see this one, a list of contributors. So a lot of people who are posting they're posting videos, posting blogs, are doing sessions. There's over 24 people in there that I've compiled here with all their information, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. So if you want to have someone more locally to you to demonstrate, go and see these guys. And finally, if you want to reach me out, just look Z-Powered Arbor and all those different medias. And on the Microsoft side, that's the link to the Microsoft documentation and a few Microsoft Ignite session. And this one is a pretty good one, the overview. It just like gives you in a different angle what I presented today. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, Eric. That was really cool. I think the demos really kind of showcase the fun functionality that exists with AI Builder. So it's always good to see those live. If anybody has any questions, I think Eric can probably stick around and answer a couple of questions. If you guys have anything you wanted to discuss or bring up, perhaps things you might want to see in the future as well, might be interesting to help Eric kind of focus any future content that he is building. So feel free to put those in the chat or just come off mute and have a chat with us.
Pleasure, Nabin.
Oh, hi.
Hello,
Hi.
Suresh.
Oh, hi. Just want to clarify, what is the difference between the cognitive service and this AI builder in Power Apps?
So the cognitive services, you actually have to do all the integration. So you do need all that technical aspect or integration, or to be able to connect to the cognitive services, get that API key and all that connection. While the AI builder, everything is built directly within the Power Platform. So a maker, a business user, can create his models, can access the pre-built models and so on directly within the platform. He doesn't have to switch over to Azure, get all that connection stuff and so on. So it's just the idea is making it easier to access for them.
Right. Okay. Oh, thank you.
Pleasure. I think we're good.
All right. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks,
that was
everyone.
awesome. And thank you, everybody, for attending. And look out on XRM Virtual for our next upcoming session. Thanks, guys.